Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Politics Today, and in this programme today we'll be discussing the historic victory of Donald Trump in the US presidential elections and asking what does this mean for British-American relations. And in this programme today I'm joined by Lynda Rose, who is the Director for Voice for Justice UK, together with Olave Snelling from the Christian Broadcasting Council. So ladies, warm welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll start off with saying that I wrote my notes last night expecting, for example, that the US presidential election result might take a couple of days to unfold and get the results. As it turns out, it was a huge landslide. So this morning I've had to totally change course and topics for the programme. So we have to discuss the US presidential election. But firstly, Lynda, can I thank you on behalf of our viewers and behalf of the Christian community for all the work that you do through Voice for Justice UK and your team in protecting our freedoms in this country and really having an impact where it matters most in Parliament. So would you just give us an update on the incredible work that Voice for Justice UK is doing, particularly this major project you've undertaken called the Commission of Inquiry that is actually looking at the discrimination that Christians face in the workplace?
Yes, indeed, and thank you for that description of everything there, Simon. The Commission of Inquiry, we started it a year ago. We always envisaged it would take a minimum of 2 years, and the aim is that we get testimony from people who feel that they've been in any way disadvantaged, if they've lost work, if they've been harassed, intimidated. We're just gathering together evidence, and we will be making a formal report to Parliament at the end of that time. And when we started out, we were very clear that it was going to be a very objective and impartial investigation. So we were quite prepared for, just think that some people were maybe exaggerating, or maybe it wasn't really discrimination. Maybe they'd brought it on themselves, whatever. We have been astonished at what we've uncovered so far, because there really does seem to be very clear evidence that Christians are being targeted almost, and I know that's a very strong word, but they are being discriminated against if they quote from the Bible, even when they're being asked their opinions of something. And they say, well, as a Christian, I believe, in a very sort of neutral way. They are still suffering a huge backlash. We've seen this time and again with people, with nurses offering to pray with a patient. And all hell seems to break loose over them. So we've been very, I'm trying to think of the right word to use, chastened, taken aback at what we've uncovered so far. We put out an interim report a few weeks ago, just of the first 10 months, and it makes very interesting reading. So I would encourage people listening to just go to our website and download it if they'd like to find out a bit more of what we're doing. And we have a lot of people actually lined up to give evidence for this next coming year, and it looks like it might actually go beyond a year because it's quite difficult fitting them all in. But we are still looking for people to tell us their stories, and they don't have to have been in the newspapers. We want to hear from ordinary Christians because we wanted to put the full picture out there. So I don't know, a parent maybe thinks that a child is being taught things that are directly opposing Christian belief and the school isn't listening to them. We want to hear from you. In the workplace, if you just feel that you are being consistently overlooked for promotion because you have dared say something at some point, we want to hear from you. And we will, God willing, be making this formal report to Parliament.
Excellent. So if you have faced discrimination because you're a Christian in the workplace, then do contact Lynda through the website, which is Voice for Justice UK. Olave, it's lovely to see you back on the programme, particularly with Lynda, because I know you both are very good friends.
We're very good friends.
But share with us the importance of the work that Lynda and the team are doing for Voice for Justice in defending our freedoms where it matters most in Parliament?
Well, the very title of what she does, it spells it out, that there are very few voices in this country now that are speaking out loud and clear for justice, for Christians, well, in any sphere, but most particularly what she is doing in actually bringing to light the kind of discrimination and harassment that people are undergoing as a result of being Christians. And so I'm an enormous admirer of dear Lynda and what she does. I just think that it is, I mean, this is the problem, you know, it's a voice crying in the wilderness, and that what shall we cry? What shall we cry? What she's doing it, crying injustice, discrimination, harassment, sidelining, all forms of pushing Christian out of the way in every single sphere in this country. And unless there is somebody who's actually doing that, then it's all just happening, just sliding, it's just kind of water under the bridge. So I'm thrilled to bits, and I support 1,000% of what.
Excellent. Lynda, I know that you're working on the very controversial assisted dying legislation that's due to come back into Parliament at the end of this month of November. Share with us your concerns regarding this assisted suicide legislation that's a private member's bill, but has been very much adopted by the Labour Party and by the Labour government. But also we're seeing so many Christian ministries like yours and Christian Concern and others who are really trying to arouse their supporters to really take action on this one and to write to their MPs and let Christians know their opposition to this assisted suicide bill.
It's a terribly dangerous piece of proposed legislation, Simon, because you know, in the media we're getting this message all the time of my right to do what I want, you know, personal autonomy, my choice, and we're being told about these tragic cases, and one doesn't want to in any way belittle the suffering of some people. But the problem is that it is impossible to put safeguards in place against abuse. And in every jurisdiction where they have legalized assisted suicide, we have seen it very rapidly extended from, it changes from terminal illness very, very quickly. And now we're seeing people who are depressed, who have medical conditions that are in no way life-threatening. They are all coming in and being included under assisted dying or euthanasia. And we've even seen in the Netherlands what's called, I think it's couple suicide or something, where one partner is ill, doesn't have to be terminal, but is ill, so the other partner elects to die at the same time. And there was a case recently of a lady who was diagnosed with early onset dementia, and she didn't want to face what was down the line. So her husband, who was fine, elected to die with her at the same time. Now, it is impossible. You know, people say, well, terminally ill, they shouldn't be made to suffer. You cannot confine it to that. And it's, again, in Canada, where they introduced it, I think it was in 2017, 2022, 4.1% of all deaths in Canada were medically assisted. Mm-hmm. This is extraordinary. You know, this is, we're rapidly approaching a place where doctors, if this is legalized, will be given the chance to decide whether or not someone lives or dies. Yeah. And in Britain today, you know, our NHS is facing enormous challenges, especially with finance. If they are given the right to help, I say help people to die, but it's more than help, it's terminating life. In cash-strapped Britain, they are going to be making decisions that are governed by financial consideration. So it's a terribly dangerous and pernicious piece of legislation. Even in the Netherlands, it's been extended to children from age 1 now and above. Now, there is no way a child gives informed consent or decides, I want to have, assisted dying. This is straight euthanasia. And this is what is down the line. We are making of people commodities. Are they useful? And if they're not, we are dangerously close to just terminating them. So really, we do need to reject this legislation, most definitely. It is dangerous.
Thank you. I think that's the most articulate opposition I've heard to the assisted suicide bill that's currently going through Parliament now. So thank you so much for that, Lynda. And Olive, just one last thing on this assisted suicide bill. So according to a political online publication called Spike, they make a compelling argument that King Lynda Rose, who is the MP that is proposing this private members bill on assisted suicide, insists that adequate safeguards are put in place, but they haven't made these details to the public. Isn't there a great danger that we're going to see the innocent and the vulnerable have premature deaths because of this legislation, and it will be on the hands of our government?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When they said adequate safeguards, what is an adequate safeguard? I mean, at the end of the day, as Lynda has said, people are going to be disposed of, for them, not paltry reasons, but certainly non-life-ending issues and reasons. And whenever human beings undertake something like that, it is bound to go wrong, and it's bound to end in tears. It really is. And it's quite interesting because under the European Commission of Human Rights, the states are specifically prohibited from intentionally depriving anyone of their lives. Okay, so that's one very strong opinion. And everywhere that I look, and the people with whom I talk, and specifically when both Lynda and I know people, particularly in the House of Lords, Baroness Laura Finlay in particular, and Dr. Rob George. I've been an intercessor with his practice, his setup for, I don't know, well over 10 years or so. So I have a stream coming through all the time from him of what is happening and the kind of issues and the things that they are facing and how they are dealing with them. And it just defies reason to think that just with a wave of a pen, you can scrap all of these arguments against assisted dying and try to bring it in. It won't work. Well, you could almost say it will work too efficiently, but we don't want it to work in the first place.
So please do make your opposition known to the assisted suicide legislation that's currently going through Parliament. Do contact your Member of Parliament and let them know your opposition to this bill, because we believe in the sanctity of life. And now, Lynda, moving on to the historic week that this week has been with the US presidential elections. I think everyone was surprised by the sheer scale of Donald Trump's victory. So not only has he won the Electoral College, which is needed to become America's next president, he is the 47th US president, but he's also won both houses of Congress, the Senate and Congress itself. He's also won the popular vote, so there can be no questions regarding his legitimacy as US president. And now it looks like he will have the power to appoint supreme judges in the Supreme Court. So we have a president now who's unprecedented in his power. What are your thoughts on the extraordinary election victory or re-election of Donald Trump as US president?
I think it's been absolutely astonishing, Simon. I went to bed thinking that Kamala Harris was going to win, which depressed me slightly, and then woke up this morning and to the news on the television saying that he had all these states. It was so clear that he had won. I think, though, the big question for me is how on earth did the pollsters get it wrong? And I kind of suspect that the media is so anti-Donald Trump. They were pushing this narrative that they wanted all the time. And there's a part of me that thinks they were doing that deliberately because they think they can influence opinion, which is not good.
I see your fist is clenched.
Yes, sorry. But yeah, I mean, he's really, has God? It's really proved all the pollsters wrong. And he has got a decisive mandate now. I very much rejoice that Kamala Harris hasn't got in, because I think her policy on abortion and just on just the moral values in general was utterly appalling. And Trump, for all his faults, and let's face it, he does have faults, but for all his faults, he really does take a very strong line defending traditional values. So I can only rejoice at that, and it will inevitably have impact around the world, I think, and in this country, because we saw Roe and Wade. That had enormous impact in this country. It made, I think, people very strident, wanting more increased abortion, but they cannot get away from the fact that in America, the tide has turned there, and I hope and pray that it will have a similar effect here. Certainly we're going to keep on fighting for this.
That's what we like to hear. And Olive, I mean, this has to be one of the greatest political comebacks in history, considering when Donald Trump in 2020 lost the presidential election, well, alleged lost the presidential election of the 2020 presidential election to Joe Biden. We see then his approval ratings were extremely low, and then to be able to turn the whole situation around in 4 years and be re-elected again as American president. It's only happened once in history, and that was in the 1800s. So he's only the second US president ever to do what he's actually done. And of course, this time he's got the mandate of the American people by winning the popular vote. Share with us how this will have a huge impact on liberals and globalists, knowing that their ambitions they certainly put the brakes on their ambitions of globalism.
Well, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And I think that possibly the reason, or one of the reasons, or one of the many reasons that he won, was that his mantra of "Make America Great Again" was something which actually resonates in the people's spirit and in their minds, probably more so than just the words itself. So he's got this absolutely phenomenal mandate now, and you can't be neutral about Trump. I mean, people either love him to bits, and they're all going completely balmy over the elections, or they hate him, and they hate him with a vicious hatred. And somewhere in the midst of all of that is the ordinary person that has to actually live and face the consequences of living in the United States under a Trump presidency. That's going to be quite something. And when you think of the ramifications of all of that, say about NATO, say about Ukraine, about all kinds of different things, different areas of the world and the policy, US policy towards them, it's going to change things. It really is going to change things a lot. And as far as domestic politics are concerned, yes, populism is out, and Trump is Trump, and he's going to do what he wants to do. It's quite scary in many ways, because I think he's quite a scary person. But let's pray that he will hold true to a position under God. And we have no idea what his personal beliefs are, but we hope that he kind of holds to the middle ground, and he holds the kind of the tenure of the United States to be a nation under God. Really, really, really pray for that, vociferously, and pleading with the Lord to keep him under control, I think.
Well, I think that goes against his very nature and his his very character, the fact that he is a bulldog, and the fact he is so aggressive and so loud makes him the person he is. And of course, he is probably the most iconic figure now in the 21st century, and is probably the most successful US president, certainly since Reagan. So I don't think he will have a quiet presidency from Donald Trump, that's for sure.
Not quiet.
And Lynda, what do you think the impact will be here on British politics? Because we know that what happens in the States has a profound impact on nations around the world. And so therefore, I think the Labour Party, Keir Starmer and his cabinet will be waking up horrified to realise that Donald Trump will be in power come January, and they're going to have to deal with Donald Trump Mark II, particularly the likes of David Lammy, our Foreign Secretary, who's deeply offended Trump, including Sadiq Khan and others within the Labour Party. How are they going to reconcile themselves that they have the Republicans back in the White House and they won't have that support for this extreme liberal progressive agenda that they've set before us and the nation, knowing they're not going to get support from the Biden or the Harris administration?
Well, isn't that interesting, Simon? I'll bet Keir Starmer today is absolutely kicking himself for recent comments that he's made. Always unwise, I think, to take too extreme a position in this sort of situation. He has learnt that lesson the hard way. How will Trump respond to him? I think that's a problem, because I suspect this will sour relations. I think the days of the special relationship severely dented, I suspect.
Yeah, and I see that President Macron was one of the first world leaders to congratulate Trump on his election, hoping to build a special relationship between France and the United States. So we'll see how that plays out. But I mean, what does this mean for globalism? Because the prospect of having Kamala Harris as America's 47th president, she wanted to be elected on a very progressive liberal agenda. As we mentioned in the programme already, she made the focal point of her campaign abortion at birth. No doubt she would have introduced a lot more progressive legislation as well, and and full accelerator towards globalism. So what impact do you think that will have on the UK now that Trump's in power and putting the brakes on this globalist ambitions, but also to bring and restore American patriotism and nationalism back to the United States rather than this globalism that the Democrats have been pushing for decades?
Well, I would imagine that every leader, including ours, will be slightly trembling in their boots as to how this is all going to turn out, because certainly Trump is not following the liberal kind of woke agenda by any means, and so we can see probably a move to a much more conservative point of view of global politics and internal politics too, and on such things as abortion, as Lynda has mentioned. He's absolutely against that agenda, and there's going to be a big fallout, I think, and when it actually comes to the point of our leaders and European leaders and how they cozy up to him, because they're going to have to, we shall see. But I think that the one good thing that Trump stands for is actually facing head-on all of those forces of globalism and wokeism and general lax moral stance and in view of many important life issues. And I think that he's going to take it in a direction that Kamala Harris most certainly would not have.
Yeah, and Lynda, we know that in the election, Donald Trump spoke about the importance of defending the Christian faith. He addressed a lot of evangelical Christian leaders, saying that he wants to protect Jesus Christ, that he wants to ensure that Christianity is protected in America. So what impact do you think this will have on Christian freedoms here in the UK, particularly issues that he campaigned on, such as uncontrolled mass immigration, the high cost of living, progressive, radical, liberal ideas and policies, and he's pushed all of that back. Do you think this could resonate with the Conservative Party as well, the ideas that we've seen with Trump across the Atlantic? Because we want the same things. We want our nation back.
Yes, I mean, I would hope so. I actually think that the election of Kemi Badenoch as the leader of the Conservative Party is a very encouraging thing, because of course she too is against all the woke agenda. So I think we're already seeing slivers of light in this country, and I would hope that she is encouraged by someone across the pond saying so explicitly that they are going to support Christian values. I would also hope that it would embolden Christians in this country to be a little bit more robust in their approach to policies and be not afraid to speak out, because we've seen, in recent years there's been such an anti-Christian agenda, and it really has it's that extreme. There has been a definite anti-Christian spirit that has tried to drive Christian values out of the public arena. And you go on Humanists Today, their website, and they're actually saying that. So I would hope that Trump's stance will be something of a check on that, but will also embolden Kemi Badenoch and Christians. So it's good.
So Olave and Lynda, thank you so much for being this week's guests on Politics Day. Both done a great job. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank you for watching this programme at home. This has been truly an historic week with an incredible victory by President Trump in this year's presidential elections, which is putting a full brakes on the move towards globalism. And this reminds us that God is sovereign and that history is his story, and we have a possibility of reshaping the West back to its moral anchorage, which is in Jesus Christ. So thank you for watching this week's edition of Politics Today.